Welcome everybody to AI for the Average Joe, Season 3, Episode 5. So there's a lot of conversation and talk around the world of AI and L&D, but there's not actually that many people doing the stuff that we're talking about and leading from the front and actually making positive change in a practical and strategical way. So we're really excited to have our guest today, James Swift, who is doing just that in Leyton. So the conversation over the next half an hour is going to be some strategic stuff, some operational stuff, and definitely some stuff that you'll find inspiring. Welcome, James.
Hello, Erica. Hi, Hayley. How are you?
Very good, thanks.
Very
Very
well.
good. Pleased to have you with us. Give us a bit of an intro and tell us what you've been up to in the world of L&D and AI at Leyton.
Sure. So I'm James Swift. I'm head of talent development at Leyton. So we're a global consultancy, and my role is to make sure people have what they need to perform in their role. We're accredited as an exceptional learning organisation, so we've got that twice in a row. So we've tried really, really hard to create that thing called a learning culture that you try to do in L&D. So we've achieved that. That's good. That's good. That's been validated. And yes, in the world of talent development and AI, so I believe that you should take a people first approach to performance in general. And integrating AI into that just seemed natural for me and us at the world of Leyton. As a consultancy, our people are performing. They're the people that are doing the work. And the perception of what we do, the perception of how good we are, is directly related to the skills and the capability of our consultants and everyone at Leyton that's performing on behalf of our clients. So our people are the Leyton brand. Our clients will remember the interactions with people that they're talking to, speaking with. They are delivering. They are at the front line and they're delivering. And yeah, how well we deliver is directly related to the people we employ, how they turn up every day, and the skills that they have to do their role. So before the conversations in L&D turned to AI, I was always very interested in that intersection between people and technology. So we'd always look at, right, okay, this is one area that we need to improve. What's the best way to achieve that thing that we need to achieve? And it was very rarely an L&D initiative on its own. L&D would have a part to play, talent development would have a part to play, but there were two other things in that ecosystem that would ultimately deliver the change or the performance improvement that you needed to. And part of that, I think you have to be practical when you're thinking around what do we need to do to get to where we need to be, because building skills takes time, energy, effort, and it's heavy lifting, right?
Yeah.
It can take years to build a skill and get really good at something. So you have to be pragmatic and go, right, okay, well, if we identify that, let's say, coaching is important to us and our managers, and we want to be a coaching first organization, which is something we talk about. I will do everything possible to avoid sending people more content. I'd rather give people a coach and go focus on this. And I think you get a better output over time, a stickier output when it comes to capability. So then you've got to start looking at, okay, well, how good are we at coaching? Do we just need to provide a training program? Do we need to give people the skills that they need to coach to a level? Or is there a piece of technology out there that we can integrate into that ecosystem that can help us get better at coaching in general, as an example? And I've always found that it's rarely just a case of L&D. There's always something else that can be integrated into that ecosystem from a technology perspective to help you to go to where you need to go, and kind of cut out some of that heavy lifting, or get you there quicker, or speed up the process of getting you to where you need to be. So that's the intersection that's always fascinated me, and that led us down a route where we were using, AI started getting integrated into technology, and that's when we started using and looking at AI tools. So I think it was around 4 years ago. Our first dabble, if you like, with AI was we were looking at skill adoption effectively. So conversational intelligence, I think, is the term for it. It's widely available now. It records your meetings, takes your notes for you,
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
and we wanted to know effectively. Well, I wanted visibility over, well, are people using my stuff and is it working? And it's very,
And
very
that's
difficult.
quite a brave question to ask as a head of L&D as well,
Mhm.
right? Because you might not get the answer that you're hoping for.
Well, no, you don't get the answer you're hoping for. No one uses your stuff, and it might not work, or you can't.
Right?
Yeah, and you can't get complete visibility over that ecosystem. But that causes a ton of problems as a head of L&D. And those problems are being your stakeholder saying the thing hasn't worked.
Yeah.
That it's the training or it's what you've delivered as head of L&D. I'm not seeing that performance input, and then you have to start going, okay, who,
Mm.
who, where are you not seeing it from? Cool. Have you observed them? No, you haven't. Okay, I
Uh-huh.
will. I'll
Uh-huh.
go and observe them. Okay, it turns out they're not doing the things, or we ask them to do 4 things and they're doing one of them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Your top performers are doing all 4 of them,
Mm.
but the majority of your people are kind of doing 1 or 2 of them, and guess
Yeah.
what? They're not doing them consistently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that tool, conversational intelligence, we started using it to, it can give you some really juicy data and insights on what's going on. But you can also use it to measure the adoption of skills. If people are a skill can be someone, it is someone doing something on the job,
Yeah.
and that can translate in some instances into what people are saying. So if you can get a view on what people are saying, and then you can kind of close that link between, right, okay, this is the skill that we want people to be doing, or this is how we want people to be doing this. That materializes in these words being said. So you
Mhm.
can get a view of not only well, you get a view of adoption, really. So if you want people to do something a certain way, they get some training on that. They go out into the real world, and they'll might use it a few times, and then it drops a bit. And that tool gives you complete visibility. And the what it does ultimately is it allows you as a head of L&D to put the accountability for using those skills onto your stakeholder, because you can
Mm.
now report on it and you can go, well, no
Yeah.
wonder you're not seeing the change. 10% or 15% of your team have come out and they're using this all the time. We got 70% to go.
Mm. Do
Now it
you
can't be
find?
the training, because these guys, otherwise no one would be using it. So you've got these
Mhm.
guys using
Yeah.
it. So it's not the training.
Yeah.
These guys have just, is it urgency? Have you told them? Do you need to be more directive? Do we need to,
Mm.
what is it that we need to do? So it enables you to have those kind of discussions with your stakeholders. And then all of a sudden you kind of have joint ownership, and then ownership passes on to them to help drive that change into the world of work. And that's the role of the manager, right? It's, you can't be there in L&D all the time. You can do it to a degree. We help, we support, we coach, but we can't be there all the
Yeah.
time. So you need to work with your managers and your stakeholders to enable that change into the organization, and using an AI tool and programming it to pick up on skills gives you that view of adoption on the job,
Mm.
and it gives you really good data to help you have conversations with your stakeholders on what may or may not be going going right or going wrong. So
Yeah.
I just listening to you is really fascinating, James, because I know I haven't really fully understood what the tool does and how you apply it. And I think when you're putting something out there that can, well, effectively, I think what I'm hearing is that you can capture skills all the time on the job and then turn that into some kind of data that you can use to help those stakeholders. And I think one of the key things that you mentioned was around ownership and accountability. And I think when you've got something more tangible like that and you can actually show that in a report or data, or and build your conversation around that, it can drive a lot more ownership and accountability. Because I think what you're saying doesn't feel like brand new information, because we know in L&D that it's always been a challenge to be able to say, well, what is the return on investment? How's it being driven forward? And when it isn't, you get people coming back to you saying, well, we need more training. So, and then we just go back into this cycle. So it sounds like it's sounding like a really innovative way to start breaking that cycle and actually getting to the bottom of what's happening in the workplace.
Yeah, thank you. I think it.
Mm,
Looking back, I think it was innovative. We didn't realise it at the time, but when I
mm,
look at this world and the technology now, even a lot of the suppliers don't use it for skill adoption. They're using it for
mm,
insights, if you like, or trying to
mhm,
give people what they feel is insightful information, useful information on what's happening.
mm,
But
Yeah.
yeah, if you can identify in any organization, right, your top performers are going to be doing something different to the rest of the business. If you can get really clinical on what those things are, you'll find your middle performers, there's a level of inconsistency to how they're deploying those top skills. Maybe they're deploying, and that's what we found. We found top performers are maybe doing these 8 things really well all the time. Your middle guys are probably doing 3 to 4 of them
mhm,
most of the time. So how do you get those middle guys to go from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8?
mm,
That takes time, and we just integrated that data into our coaching programs to get visibility over, right, okay, you're working at Leyton, you're doing all right, but here's a set of 8 things that our top performers are doing. You're doing 3 of them really well. I'd like you to start doing this 4th one really well. And then
mm,
every month they learn the 4th one, they start doing it, they're integrating it, and then we go, okay, that's great. Now you're doing 4, let's get you to 5. And it's a continuous. You use that data to continuously build those skills over time, and then all of a sudden you've got this movement across the organisation where most people are moving up into that top performer or high performance category, or everyone's got real clarity on what it is that they need to be doing,
Yeah.
mm,
and you've got clinical data on how often that's happening, so that you can all work together to drive that
mm,
to drive that change. So it didn't feel innovative at the time.
mm.
At Leyton, we just get on with it. We don't often kind of pop our heads out of the working environment to go, is anyone else doing this? We just kind of get on with
Mm,
it. But yeah, now I'm told it was I'm told it was fairly innovative. So
mm.
Yeah.
if
How
you
do
say it
you
is great.
how do you capture the data? Where do is it, are you recording conversations? Are you recording calls? Are you, where does that data come from? And
Yes,
what
to it.
percentage of the work are you capturing? Because I suppose that helps the accuracy as well, doesn't it, of the
Uh,
tool?
yes, it does. And what you will find is you don't need a lot of it to confirm what you're thinking, or there may not be a big um, yeah, it doesn't need to be super clinical in the beginning, right?
Mhm,
You can with a little bit of data, you can get a view of what's happening, and then it can point you in the right direction to go, okay, well, this is what I think what's happening. Let's go and confirm that. So yeah, you don't need when you first start doing this, you may find that there's such a difference between those top performers and the middle group. Maybe there's just 1 or 2 things that are going to make a big difference. Um, so you don't need a ton of information
mhm,
to have an impact. Um,
mm,
I think this is interesting because it shines a light. And my tagline at the moment is AI hasn't caused this problem. This problem's always been here. AI is shining the light on the problem, whether that's, I don't know, security of the data or how people use information or James, to your point around kind of clarity and what everybody's kind of aiming at, and what does that look like in terms of transparency and having the right conversations as a manager with people, that's always been an issue that we've always known. The bell curve of performance, assuming everybody's going to start at the same level or have capability to get to that level 4, level 5, level 6, etc., without kind of the halo and horns effect that we might have in L&D. We like that person, so we give them a little bit more rather than the person perhaps that reminds us of someone we never used to like. So all this bias and everything else plays into it, doesn't it? Whereas,
I don't
and
know
we've
what
all
you're
been
talking
there.
about, Erica. Oh.
We've all been there when you're looking at a manager with a team member over there and you're thinking, really? Really? Anyway, but I think the clarity of the data and the objectivity that you're talking about is just it's just a really nice link into more of the challenges and problems that we see in the workplace without making it subjective or personalized around an
Mm,
individual person, attitude, personality, performance, whatever it might be. So again, it's shining a light, but providing a really nice, clear solution. And if I was head of L&D now, this is absolutely the track that I would be going down, because surely it just simplifies that whole process of all of that
mm.
kind of treacle that we get stuck in the workplace.
How far do we extend this as well? Because you've got the data now, you've got the information, but we also know that AI can become the feedback giver, can become the coach. So, and actually, it's a much safer space to receive feedback and to be coached and to be counseled. And I think, where do you go next with it? When talking about innovation and what we can use this for, there's got to be more opportunity to be able to take it further.
Yes, yes, there is, and there's a number of avenues you could take it. I'm not a big fan of replacing coaching,
Hmm.
but we are starting to look at ways in which we can further integrate AI into that ecosystem, right? And is this in the world that I live in at Leyton? We're not using AI to replace coaching. Okay, we're using it to give us more clarity over what's going on. We're
Hmm.
using it we're looking at ways in which we can use it to support our coaches. So, okay, we have X amount of new joiners. Those new joiners need to practice certain things, and we want to give them as much practice as possible with a real person.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
so if we look at our new joiner ecosystem, there are really three things that impact performance and speed to competency. So we measure speed to competency as the output. You can get your training program nailed down, and that will improve speed. Put the learning in the right order. People get up to speed, or they reach that competency faster. But you've still got a huge amount of variation with people within that ecosystem. Well, why is that? It's like, okay, well, activity. What's the activity levels that a new joiner needs to be doing? And are they doing that level of activity? Because you've got to do a certain amount of activity to practice on the job and learn. How much coaching are you getting? You mentioned earlier, favoritism. Managers might lean to a particular person or group of people, well, or unconsciously leave people out. Well, we can get data on the amount of coaching that's happening to a degree, types of coaching, and we can start getting a view on what good coaching looks like. But we've now got an ecosystem, for example, where we are doing X amount of live practice sessions with a new joiner, okay? And that's working. That's had a huge impact on time to competency. I think if I look at the impact report for Q3, we've knocked an additional 30 days off of some of our long-term capability marker points, and that was purely by putting systematic practice in place with a person. The problem that we've got now is that we're reaching the limits of how much time that person can spend practicing with a human.
Yeah.
So we're thinking, okay, well, when we have someone that needs a bit more practice, we're unable to provide that at the moment because our human that does that is maxed out. So
Yeah.
how can we give that human an AI tool that enables them to give
Absolutely.
give someone a bit more practice on a particular task or topic, but it's not going to replace the human. We've just maxed out on the capacity of that human to do any more of the activity that we know is having an impact on performance. So right there, that's the use case for looking at how we can utilize AI in that really niche specific scenario. But you know, I think where you go is driven by, you need the ecosystem of it. You know, where you go is quite straightforward in my view. It's what are the limits to what you can do right now with you, your team, and the business, and how do you what can you do, or is there a tool or a piece of technology that you can utilize to push those limits a bit further beyond, so that you can get you can get better and get the results that that you need. So you know, where does it go, Hayley? I think it can go anywhere, and I think the problem with the market right now is there's so many areas that it can go and you can invest in. What's really important is you really need that process of identifying where you're going to spend your time and effort, because these tools take time to build, they take time to train. You've yeah, I mean, we talk about that all day, couldn't we? But you need it's more about the system of going, where is the limits of performance right now, and is there an AI tool we could use to help that, which we just wouldn't have done. We'd have just been, okay, we've had this performance improvements, we've maxed out our people. That's it. That's as good as we're going to get. But now we've got the ability to use AI in the appropriate space to go, could we get even more improvements in this area? So
it comes back again to mindset, doesn't it? And that's where the human expertise becomes so important, because to know how you want to use the tool, you need to know what you want to use it for, and that comes from that expertise and that knowledge of what's going on the ground. So I love the way that the two can interlink if we get this right.
And also to the point as well of, you know, don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good as well. You know, start small, play around, you know, iterate, test and learn, have that agility type mindset. You know, because sometimes I remember feeling quite paralyzed, thinking, oh my God, I've got this massive organization and I'm accountable for this, this, and this, and everybody's coming to me. Everybody wants a bite of the L&D pie, right? And it's like, actually, how do you get small little innovative projects off the ground and not build a cottage industry, but actually with the right principles and guidance, just start making impacts. So then naturally it has its own organic growth. And to the point around accountability and responsibility, you know, functional leaders then just say, actually, we're going to grow this in our area under the right guidance. And you then become a guardian of learning quality or performance rather than the doer of everything as well. So and also you're then not having to go to, you know, your chief people officer or whoever it is and say, I need more trainers at X £1,000 a pop type thing, because no one's in that climate anymore, are they? So you know, there's a couple of headaches there this can alleviate, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Interesting. So, James, I know you kind of wanted to share the overall kind of Leyton strategy around this project, and I think people would benefit from seeing your overall thinking. So, feel free to pop that slide up on the screen, and it will be good just to understand a little bit around that before we start to wrap up today's episode.
Okay, so this is the model that we've been using. And hopefully this just helps. This just helps people start, because the reason that we had to take a step back and really think, okay, what do we do, is because it's the noise, right? There's so much noise around AI, what it can be used for. I mean, there doesn't a day go by when someone messages me saying, we've got an AI powered what's it thingy-majig that could really help you, and it's like, yeah, no, great, but I'm not.
Is that the technical term?
Yeah, and it's like, well, that's not my problem, but thanks.
Yeah. What's the problem we're looking to solve, right?
Exactly. So there's so much out there right now. You don't need to worry about what's out there. You'll find a tool, or there'll be something out there that can help you do what you want to do. What's more important for me is the thought process behind how you can use it, how your business can use it. And I worked backwards. My starting point with AI when that case study got published was, yes, I was doing that, but I honestly wasn't using it for anything else. I wasn't using your GPTs or anything like that for kind of personal improvements. We started at the organizational level, and I've had to kind of learn myself to then go down to the team and myself. But this was our starting point. So you've got to look at the mega trends. You've got to find, if you're head of L&D, you've got to find some time to get out there and start looking at the mega trends. What's happening globally? If you're in a global organization, you do need to understand the global legislation, the landscape, what's happening with the who's ahead, who's behind. And there's a ton of information or reports out there that you can quickly get your hands on in L&D communities, because we're great at sharing, that can tell you what's happening in the global AI landscape, who's doing what, who's investing. Once you've spent some time understanding that, then that puts you at the same level, maybe not the same level, but that puts you at a closer level to the other senior leaders in the business, like your CTO and your COO, that are really important, because they're going to be developing the technology or have relationships with suppliers that are integrating AI. So you need to know the global AI legislation landscape. Once you know and you understand that, because that's going to have limits on what you can do, right? It's then about understanding organizational performance. And what I mean by that isn't how are you performing right now. You need to understand how the business is going to be performing in, let's say, 3 years' time. You need to spend some time visualizing that in a way and going, okay, if the business needs to get from here to here, let's take some time to shape out what the organization is going to look like. What does that mean with regards to the teams? Are we going to have different teams within the organization? Are our people going to be doing different things? Have we got the leaders we need to take us there? And then you start going down into the first circle, which is human capability, right? Once you understand where the organization is going to be and how it's structured, etc., you've then got to work out whether you've got the human capability to get you there. And you'll start doing a gap analysis, right? But you do your gap analysis in the context of the future state of the organization. What's going to be important? Well, it might be change management, it might be empathy. Is it leadership behaviors? Have your leaders got the capability to take the business where they need to be? What's going on at manager level? What's going on with your teams? What have you got to change? So you do your gap analysis around human capability. Then you start looking at that intersection between, well, what am I going to do about it? What's the solution? Is it building that capability, or is it utilizing technology or AI, artificial intelligence, in any way, shape, or form that can support the development of that human capability side? Once you've got that nailed down and you know what that ecosystem is going to be, the final part is looking at the organizational infrastructure. Okay, and what I mean by that is we now need to encourage people to do these things day to day without you or anybody else in the room. So organizational infrastructure is looking at, okay, well, what's your long-term reward and recognition processes? How are your people being reviewed at the end of the year? Do we need to add something about this task or capability in there? Is it mapped to our capability frameworks or our people assessment processes? And you have to change those, right, to encourage the right behaviors to happen when you're not in the room. And then from that ecosystem, the final part is talking around data-driven decisions. So I think you're better placed to give your stakeholders the information they need from that ecosystem to help them decide whether the business is getting there or not. And I think that's when I talk to the world of L&D, we're so caught up in trying to measure the ROI of our initiative that my take on that is your initiative is one thing. Your stakeholder is going to be doing 3 to 4 different things, investing in 3 to 4 different areas to try and get a performance improvement that is going to generate an ROI. Your L&D initiative is not going to generate that ROI. ROI is return on investment. It's you need to know the cost going in and the cost going out. Well, the cost going out isn't at your level; it's at the stakeholder level.
Yeah.
So you need to find the right level of information to feed back up to your stakeholders so that they can make decisions on whether they put more into skill building or more into something else.
Mm-hmm.
And
Going
I
back to the
think,
accountability piece, I guess, really, rather than
Mhm.
yeah,
us taking the weight of the world on our shoulders in L&D.
Making it more
yeah,
visible, aren't you, really?
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and it's visibility. What information can you feed back up to your stakeholders that helps them get a view on what they need to do and how quickly we're getting the organization to where they need to be. So if you've identified that leadership behaviors need to change, you need to find a way to get information to your stakeholders on whether those leaders are changing those behaviors or not. In on that particular example, if there's certain skills that you've identified that you need in that future state of the business, you need to find a way of measuring what's the state of those skills in the business now and how quickly does it take you to build them, and what's the cost in
Mm.
building those skills.
Hmm.
Let someone else determine the ROI of that cost,
Hmm.
because it is what it is, right? It costs X amount of money to build these skills. Well, you either want them or you don't.
Yeah, yeah.
So you just,
What's the detractor of not doing it as well? I think sometimes we forget that piece.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, if you don't do it, what's the other option?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, have you got one? And if you haven't, then this is it, and this is the
Yeah.
best that we can do and the best that we can come up with. So,
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Again,
that's
don't
the
let the
thought
perfect
process,
be
I think.
the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
Just kind of
Yeah, and don't
well,
avoid the data for the fear of it telling you what you don't want to hear. And I think then there will be an element of that out there as well. So that's that challenging yourself, and that's another skill, is being okay with the tough data, and then equipping yourself to be able to do something about it.
yeah,
That's not an easy thing, because L&D, I think, over the years is about responding to those quick fixes and those quick decisions, and we don't really know and we can't really measure anything. So it's actually quite a culture shift for L&D in terms of being able to then deal with that and look at things differently. So I think
yeah,
there's a skill shift there for people in learning as well.
yeah, for sure.
Some brilliant stuff there, James. Thank you so much.
It's such a good case study, and when we talked
Yeah,
about
it's
the world
brilliant.
of learning, it got such a good response. And I know, James,
Mm.
you've obviously published the white paper and the article on training zone, etc. I don't want to bombard you with either AI vendor requests because we know what will happen to those people. But if anybody wants to connect or engage or kind of is worth a conversation, what's the best way for people to contact you?
So I think LinkedIn.
Yeah,
My contact details are on there. I don't mind being contacted with vendors. I worked in sales in a previous life, so I know what it's like. I know that it's hard, and I've either got the problem or I haven't. Is my view
yeah,
with vendors.
Mhm.
So LinkedIn is the best way to contact me. You've got my email address on there as well, which is jswift@leyton.com. And yeah, let's go from there. If anybody's trying it, like, feel free to reach out, or if you want to take a steer or just kind of discuss how you can take a step forward and cut through that noise, then happy to help and support.
brilliant, James. Thank you so much. And just to reiterate, there's a lot of people talking about this stuff. I don't often come across people doing this stuff and having proven use cases and stuff like that. So again, James, thank you so much for sharing that. We really appreciate that. And we know the watchers and listeners will be fascinated around this as well. And we'll put the link to your article on Training Zone underneath in the comments so people can read that as well. Thank you so much, James, for being with us today. Another fantastic edition, in my opinion, of AI for the Average Joe. Make sure you tune in for the next episode, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.